Title: The Last Broadcast. On a stagnant summer night, the kind where the air feels heavy and the shadows stretch longer than they should, Max Dawson sat on his bed, headphones muffled against his ears as he scrolled through forums dedicated to long-lost television shows. These were not the popular ones, but rather the gems that had faded into obscurity, like those peculiar series that had aired only a handful of episodes before disappearing without a trace. Ghosts in the annals of entertainment history. His fingers froze over the keyboard as he stumbled upon a thread titled, "The Lost Episodes of Nightshade Manor." He remembered hearing whispers about the show from older kids. It was a horror series that had contentious beginnings, reputedly cut short due to disturbing content. Rumor had it there were several unaired episodes that never saw the light of day, their existence a subject of speculation among die-hard fans and paranormal enthusiasts. Intrigued, Max dove deeper into the thread, his heart racing with curiosity. A user named Spectral Viewer claimed to have found a way to access the lost episodes. The detailed instructions were unintelligible at first, steeped in cryptic language and ominous warnings, but a thrill rushed through him as Max pieced it together. If he followed the steps perfectly and at the witching hour, he could unlock the unholy archive of this cursed show. Max, an aspiring filmmaker with a penchant for the macabre, felt an inexplicable connection to the series. It was time to discover if the show was really as frightening as the legends suggested. The clock struck midnight, and the atmosphere shifted unnaturally. The house creaked and groaned as he set up his laptop, surrounded by the shadows of his bedroom walls. He executed the instructions as directed, creating a hidden folder, altering file extensions, and changing the playback settings on an old media player. Heart-hammering, he entered the final command, and the screen flickered to life. The familiar theme song echoed through his room, a creepy melody that sent chills racing down his spine. Slowly, the video loaded, revealing a dimly lit, decaying manor. Shadows danced across the walls, and a melancholic voice began to narrate the gruesome history of Nightshade Manor. Episode after episode revealed unspeakable horrors. A lost family, a malevolent spirit, and cursed objects that turned everyday life into a nightmare. But something was off. Each episode was tainted with unsettling imagery and cryptic messages that transcended fiction. As Max watched, words flashed on the screen. "You should not be watching this." A shiver crept through him, but curiosity kept him glued in place. Suddenly, the screen flickered again, and an episode rolled forth, one he had never seen before. The imagery was hazy, a semblance of reality blurring with the supernatural. Max winced as scenes played out showing the tragic fates of the characters, each more harrowing than the last. A girl in the manor stood frozen, her eyes wide with dread, the room around her dissolving into chaos. The walls began to bleed, and a whispered chant filled the air, "It will find you." Max's stomach twisted, he felt physically ill watching the screen. Glancing down at his headphones, he realized he could no longer hear the soundtrack. Something was wrong. Around him, the shadows morphed unnaturally, and a cold gust of air swept through his room. The lights flickered, and panic began to bubble up in him. The palpable sense of dread was overwhelming as the girl on screen turned her gaze directly towards him. "Help us!" she screamed, her voice resonating from the speakers like a ghostly echo. Somehow, it felt as if she were reaching out to him, pleading for salvation from whatever dark force haunted the manor. Max felt his breath hitch. Every instinct told him to shut off the laptop, but something, an unseen compulsion, held him in place, entranced as the screen continued unfolding. The narrative wore on, revealing horrific images of the manor's final occupants, drowned in anguish while their souls remained imprisoned. It became clear that they fed off the fear of viewers like Max. With boldness, he raised his hand, reaching towards the screen as if he could grasp the fate he had unwittingly drawn upon himself. But before he could, the room plunged into darkness. Max could hear his own rapid breathing, each gasp punctuated by fear. He yanked out his headphones, stumbling backward as the ominous chant crept from his laptop speakers, now distorting into something primal and ancient. The screen flashed impossibly bright before revealing a hand reaching through the static, gnarled and beckoning. In a desperate lunge, he shut the laptop, but it was too late. The air thickened, and shadowed figures seemed to swirl around him, whispers echoing in a cacophony of despair. He envisioned the hollowness behind their eyes, the desperation of their plight. For as long as Nightshade Manor's episodes remained lost, they would persist, haunting any who dared to seek them out. In the days that followed, more strange occurrences plagued him. Whispers in the night, fleeting shadows in his peripheral view, and the inexplicable feeling of being watched. The episodes had extended their wicked grasp into his reality. Max kept telling himself he would get over it, just dismissing it as a trick of the mind. But deep down, he knew something darker had seeped into his life from that cursed screen. And as the sun set each night, he could hear her voice just beyond the threshold of sleep, begging for release. Yet ultimately, it was he who would pay, the last unwitting viewer of a story that had never truly ended, a cruel cliffhanger destined to loop forever.